I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining this conversation today. We're going to focus on something I'm very passionate about, which is actually my two-word purpose: equip people. Everything I've done over the last 40 years has been focused on equipping people to succeed, to prosper, to be their best, to live their best life, to do their best work, to lead people, to sell better, you name it. That has been my focus. So I'm very passionate about what we're going to talk about and explore today, which is what is a viable pathway for all of us to enhance our ability to compete in the marketplace, to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. And a keyword that I use is transformation. So we're all trying to achieve an advantage in our life, in our work. One of the ways to do that is to join something called a mastermind. That's our focus today. Now, before you say, okay, I don't need to hear this, masterminds come in all shapes and sizes. And I'll talk to you about what those look like. But I mainly want to get across the 10 key elements that are in a good, valuable return on investment mastermind. What do you need to look for? And so let me give you a little background on why I know this. I have spent, as I said, the last 40 years coaching, training, teaching, developing, leading, managing, consulting with organizations, with individuals, with teams. And I've learned what works and what doesn't. And one of the things that I'm finding is that when it comes right down to it, we all have busy schedules, but we all need that growth mindset, that willingness to transform. I just did a blog article and podcast episode this week on why transformation is the new competitive advantage. And you can see scrolling across the bottom here, all of the different things that you can see as far as our resources go. You can catch me. My books I've written are on Amazon. You can look up my name, Stephen C. Goodner, and find those there. A couple of ways to email me with my personal email or with our general email at the business. On LinkedIn, either Steve Goodner or the EQFIT page. YouTube at EQFIT, there's a ton of free resources there. And I've started a brand new series there that I want to share today that I hope will be helpful. It's totally unscripted. The videos are about 15 minutes long. It's called Emotionally Intelligent Living, Straight Talk with Steve. And I am literally just taking a focused topic and sharing the ways we can improve those things, what the challenges are, what the solutions are, but in a very conversational way. So I hope that's helpful. You can see that we have a podcast, a blog on our website. So all of that is available. That's why I've got this scrolling across the bottom. I want you to share with me what is a challenge for you when it comes to your life and your growth and your development. I mean, that's the place I live every day. I've worked with hundreds of organizations, thousands of different individuals and team members, and I can help in so many different ways. And the reason I put my email here is I love to have conversations with people. So whether you're looking for leadership development in sales, maybe you're leading a ministry in some way, maybe you're on the spiritual faith side of things. That's a big part of who I am as well. So would love to have those conversations. I would also like for people to share with me the things that are on their heart and mind. What would you like to know more about? So my background in neuroscience, psychology, the emotional intelligence, the science of emotional intelligence, habit formation and habit transformation, rational thinking, skill development, and then just specific skill development. Those are all of the things that I have invested into in my life so that I can equip people. So let's talk a little bit about some things that are coming. I'm going to have some new pages on the website very soon that will talk about our mastermind. We're almost completed with those web pages and we'll have those up there. But today is about giving you general information that I hope will be a lot of value around what to look for in a mastermind. Now, some of these masterminds run for years, some of them run for 12 months. We've developed one that is not a boot camp. It's not 4 weeks or 6 weeks. It's 12 weeks. Why 12 weeks? Number one, everybody runs a busy schedule. Number two, 12 weeks, 90 days, is about the time it takes to really have habit transformation, which is a big part of what we do. And so I would ask you to check into those as soon as we can get those live, which will be sometime in the next couple of weeks. But let's get focused today. Let me jump right in here to start talking about why is this important. The mindset that you build for yourself today determines the outcomes for tomorrow. It's going to determine how you shape your outcomes, your success, your satisfaction in life. Mindset is a very, very big deal. Now, as we talk about this concept of masterminds, you can kind of see where we're going, right? Mindset mastery. If we can do that, become adaptive, become more agile, more resilient, we can literally make a difference in our lives. We can shape our own future instead of just letting it happen to us. And so we're going to focus on what a mastermind is, and we're starting to talk about that. We're going to talk about the 10 things a mastermind must have to provide you real value and return on your investment. We're going to talk about what works and what doesn't work. We're going to introduce our EQFIT Masterminds and tell you why we've designed them the way we have. And then we're going to give you some additional insights to ensure that you pick the best path forward. Now, there are many different ways to develop yourself. Let's talk a minute about that. You can do your own thing. You can read books. You can watch videos. All of those things have some level of value. Why is a mastermind more important or maybe more effective in a growth process, in a development process? Because it brings together a variety of different elements that we know are very important. Number one, and we'll talk about this in the 10 elements for a successful mastermind, you've got to have somebody who knows what they're doing, who has the expertise and experience, and who has the tools, the processes, the learning, and can facilitate in a way that is appropriate and that will be helpful to people. But you also get this group of people that you travel this journey with. So 8 to 10 people in a mastermind, in my opinion, is the ideal number. Because if you have 25 or 30 people, that's more of a membership, and it's more just general group kind of coaching and learning. You don't get the collaborative learning that you get in a smaller group. So we like to focus on 8 to 10. That collaborative learning is very important. You hear things from many different perspectives. Also, mastermind should provide you some form of exploration of who you are through validated assessments. Most of them that I know that I look at online don't do that. We have a very robust assessment package that is included at no additional cost in the mastermind itself. I think that's so important because you can't fix what you can't see. And the more that you can identify the different areas of growth opportunity for you, the easier it is to create the pathway. You get clarity, you get insight. So masterminds have a variety of things that they bring together if they're well designed and if they're well delivered. Well, let's get into that. What is this all about? Well, first, they're not all created equal. And you probably have figured out that's part of what I want to talk about. Time, energy, money, and momentum are lost if you get in the wrong mastermind. And a lot of them have the illusion of progress, but not true transformation. Now, you hear that I'm using the word transformation and not change. Change is easy to go forward and backwards. You can make a change and go back and do things the way you used to. We're talking about transformation, caterpillar to butterfly kinds of things. So it's important that you get real transformation out of a mastermind, not just a bunch of stuff that is kind of loosely put together and isn't all that helpful. Common mastermind pitfalls. They are vague goals, poor structure, weak facilitation. You could go on and on about that. Okay, let's shift gears. Let's focus on what is important for a successful mastermind. First one is clear purpose and outcome. So the way we have set up our masterminds is they're very laser focused. They're for leaders. They are for salespeople. They are for ministry leaders. It is a very focused group of people. That helps to ensure we get the right people in those groups, in those masterminds. Clarity of focus and outcome is absolutely critical. And here's some questions to think about. What will someone be focused on? What will they experience? What will the outcomes be? That should be very clear. And if that is not well defined before you get into or decide to make a decision about a mastermind, you need to find those things out, because you don't want to get into something that isn't really going to give you the transformation that you want. And then how will those outcomes benefit you as an individual? This is going to help people understand what to expect and if the outcomes align with their personal goals and desires. And that's a big part of clear purpose and outcome. Number two, what is the number two thing a good mastermind needs to have? And that is simply a curated, like-minded membership. So the formation of the group, or what I call a cohort, needs to be people who are aligned in their focus, their goals, and their growth path. I have worked with organizations that bring all their people in for a workshop or a training or whatever, and you get two or three that are just absolutely disengaged. That is not what a mastermind should be in any sense of the form, because we want people who are highly engaged, who want to develop, who want to transform, who want to create their own competitive advantage, and who are engaged with what's going on. That's where the collaboration really happens. And it's where things can really make a difference and really move the needle for people. There is profound power in collaborative learning. Now, what's the next thing? Number three here, skilled facilitation. Someone who has the expertise in the following areas: real world experience. So when I talk to people about our masterminds, I'm talking about 40 plus years of experience, certifications and deep knowledge, SMEs kind of knowledge. That's important. I want people who have real world experience, and I'm certified in dozens of different assessments and processes. I'm a certified advanced trainer. So you need a facilitator who can bring you things, not just good information, but who understands the neuroscience of how our brains work and how we learn new things, retain that information, and strengthen those skills that we're building. Somebody who's successfully coached, trained, and consulted in the past, who has a well-defined and proven body of work, and who has a passion for what we're talking about here. And I think that's a very important point. If we don't have a passion for what we're doing, then that's probably not a great thing. Now, I haven't mentioned, if you have any comments or questions you'd like to put in the chat, please do that. I'm 15 minutes in and forgot to say that. So please feel free to do that. What's the next piece here? Well, the next element we need to make sure is in a mastermind that's really going to help us transform and get us where we want to go. It needs to be a safe, accountable environment. Now, those two things are not the same thing, obviously. Psychological safety and an equality of conversational sharing. Those two things we know from the Google survey and study that they did. That's the two most important things to high functioning teams. Well, it's the same thing in a mastermind, because that becomes a high functioning team. And that is the key to group success. A safe environment facilitates transparency and it accelerates transformation. People can share openly. They don't feel judged. They don't feel like people are making fun of them or not afraid to share what they're thinking. That's important. The accountability is also just as important, and it's a key to growth and transformation. You know, accountability is, are we accountable to ourselves and are we accountable to our group? Those things together are really important to have a very successful mastermind. Now, the next is consistent structure and rhythm. There needs to be a curriculum, a logical stepped learning process that is right-sized. So you don't want to be overwhelmed, right? We're going to talk about what doesn't work in a mastermind here in a minute. You don't want to be overwhelmed. You want the right size chunks of learning, and you can practice them. There is a very specific neuroscience-based approach to learning and skill development as an adult that we know works, and it's called Engage, Activate, Reflect. That comes right out of our friends at 6 Seconds, the largest emotional intelligence community in the world. Why is that important? Engage with new learning, activate it by practicing it, then reflect on what worked, what didn't work, what could I do differently, what could I adapt or modify, and the cycle starts over. Engage, activate, reflect, engage, activate, reflect. That is so critical to getting our best learning and developing our skills the fastest and most effective way possible, and sustaining and locking in the learning for the long term. That process just works. And if you don't have that kind of system and structure behind a mastermind, then it becomes very haphazard, very random, very distracted in many ways. And the rhythm, the timing, should be consistent and fit into busy schedules. So our masterminds are basically a one-on-one coaching session up front to talk about the assessments and what they're saying, and then 12 weeks of weekly meetings that only take about 90 to 120 minutes each. So an hour and a half to 2 hours, no homework. The whole point of the way we're developing what we're doing is it is contained within the understood expectation of time. Time is one of our most precious assets. And so we keep things within those time frames. Now, you practice it during the day, and everything we do is built so that it becomes natural to practice that throughout the week. But we know everybody's got busy schedules. The rhythm should provide enough time between sessions to incorporate the new learning and allow for practice. And that's what I've been talking about. What's the next thing? Well, the next thing is evidence-based tools and assessments. I've already talked a bit about this. When I talk about assessments, please hear my heart on this. Most assessments that are validated in what we call predictive validity, do they truly measure what they say they're going to measure, are going to be helpful. But the most helpful way to approach assessments is a multidimensional assessment package. Now, we use emotional intelligence, habits, personality, coachability, trust, role-specific assessments. So you can see it's a very robust assessment package, multidimensional, because if you just go personality or just go strengths, it's a really lopsided approach that I don't think gives a very productive long-term outcome. I think it's very focused in one way, but it tends to create some other problems down the road. Not that those are bad assessments. I'm not saying that, but think about the holistic approach. And tools, downloads, processes, ways of doing things that provide real world impact. Those need to be a part of the mastermind. What's the next one? Real world application and feedback. Learning and skill development have to have proven that they have real world application and impact, that they really do make a difference. They move the needle. The mastermind needs to have a robust feedback loop. So there has to be a good feedback loop process. So there's group sessions for collaborative learning and for transformation. There's email and text support from the facilitator. That's what I do in my masterminds. And then a central location somewhere where people that are part of the process can come together and talk about what's going on with them. And maybe in some of the masterminds, people choose to do a specific project where they decide, you know what, I'm going to use this mastermind to solve a big problem in my organization or in my team or in my sales or in my ministry. And they decide they're going to come out of that with a project that they want to complete. And that's great. All of that should be organic to a well-designed mastermind. What's the next one? It cannot just be short-term focused. It has to be long-term growth focused. So what we do in masterminds to have real value and return on investment needs to impact the short term, sure, but needs to have it aligned with long-term goals, long-term perspectives, much more of a strategic thinking process. So that's something that's really important. How many times have you gone to a seminar or a workshop or a training or something like that, and you come out of it and you learn one or two things that you want to remember? You lose 90% of that stuff the minute you walk out the door. The other 10% tends to diminish over a couple of weeks. And maybe you hold on to one thing or maybe two that you can use and you try to integrate into what you're doing. That's not transformation. That is tactical. I think I made up a new word, technical, which is technical and tactical together. You get all kinds of bonus stuff today, but think about that. You want transformation. You don't just want another tool to hang on your tool belt. Let's see, we got two more of these. Access to expert insights. Does the mastermind give you access to that expert, that facilitator, that can give you that next level of input and feedback that you need? And that can come through the group sessions, through, say, a LinkedIn group that's created. It could be email or text messages to the facilitator, or it could be a library of resources like we provide. So those are the kinds of things that are going to be really important to put the foundation under the learning so that you have those proof sources and those tools and resources to go to. And then the last one I want to talk about in the 10 things a mastermind needs to have to be successful is strategic peer collaboration. That is so very important. A facilitated and guided process of peer collaboration. Now, that's important, guided and facilitated. So we don't just go all over the place. We keep things focused. The facilitator keeps things focused on what the mastermind's goals and objectives and expectations are so that we get to the outcomes that we want to get to as we go through the process and as we graduate from that mastermind. Now, let's switch gears and talk about the things that don't work so well. Here's one, and that is some red flags to look for. Hype over substance. There's a lot of these masterminds out there, and they have wonderful websites and sales pages and all of that. What is the substance behind them? If you can't identify that, you've got to have a set of questions to ask and have a conversation before you commit. Because, and I'm probably bad, I probably go too far the other direction. As a matter of fact, my son, the website designer for us, looked at my sales page for our masterminds and said, "This is way too long." Excuse me. I wanted to put as much substance in there as I possibly could. I want people to know exactly what they're going to experience. And then I don't just have a button to push and sign up and pay your money. You've got to have a conversation with me. Why? Because fit is important. EQ, fit. Fit is very important. And so there has to be substance. The structure cannot be loose. It needs to be tight. It needs to be well-defined. There has to be follow-through. There has to be a logical progression, or you're not going to get the outcomes you want. And this whole, the whole point of this is not for me as a facilitator to have you say what a great facilitator I am, and oh my gosh, how much do you know, and all of that. Okay, that sounds good. I love appreciation. But the reality is that's groupthink. I don't want groupthink. We're all individuals. We're all created individually. We need to have what we specifically need to grow and to transform. What's another thing that really doesn't work, and why some groups will stall your growth? Cognitive overload. So not the right balance between new learning and practical application. Mastermind should not be a lecture or an information dump, but should be a transformational experience where learning, practice, and reflection, what I call the neuroscience proven method of locking in the learning and skill development, that's what we need to have happen. Emotions drive people, people drive performance. So this emotional burnout here, what does that mean? Well, that emotions drive people, people drive performance, we know is true. Constant exposure to emotional environments that add to emotional load is not helpful. So if you get in a mastermind where somebody's always complaining and there has to be a mindset of moving forward and being good at what you do. And so it cannot be this constant negativity and emotional downers. In many ways, what I call emotional vampires. You need to get the emotional vampires boundaried out so that you can get the transformation that you want. Lack of stretch. I have a very good friend, Dr. Chuck Coker, who I work with, and I love his saying, growth happens at the edge of our comfort zone. That means we have to stretch. So those are some things to look for and make sure that those are not going to be present, because those will take away from the value of the mastermind. And there's a couple of other things here. The neuroscience of overwhelm and distraction. Too much information and material generates a feeling of being overwhelmed. And we don't need that. We have enough going on in our lives. What we need is enough, the right balance that will help us grow the skills so we grow our capacity, we grow our competency, our chemistry becomes better, and our character improves and is enhanced. The 4 C's of what we know is necessary to lead ourselves better and to then lead other people, whatever function you have in life. Lack of organization and focus leads to distraction, which dilutes the desired outcomes. What else? Transformation demands more than just inspiration. There are a lot of very inspirational people out there. And good for them, right? I'm happy for them. I'm glad that they're inspiring and all of that. But how do you infuse that into yourself? Okay, maybe it uplifts us while we're with those people and it helps us and encourages us. But is there structure and process and learning and practice and exercises and skill development within that so that we can get the transformation that we want? It demands validated personal insights. That's the assessments. So it's more than just inspiration, it's data. It's good, validated data. We need a clarity of purpose and focus, which we've already talked about, and a proven pathway for growth. Now, your pathway and my pathway may be different, but that's fine because we're different people. But there has to be a logical progression and a pathway that makes sense. The sequencing of things is very important. So that's another thing to look at. So now let's jump into, this is where I'm transitioning to the EQFIT Masterminds. All 10 of those elements of success in a mastermind, I have designed into our EQFIT Masterminds. And we have 3 masterminds that are starting in August, which is tomorrow. And that's leadership, sales, and ministry leaders. I have worked with all 3 of these groups extensively over time. Leadership, everywhere from owners of organizations, partners in organizations, down to first level supervisors. And so as we look at these masterminds, here's what we've done. 12 weeks of focused transformation. Crystal clear what we're going to focus on in those 12 weeks. There are 3 tracks that I just talked about. I integrate the following things: emotional intelligence, neuroscience, psychology, habit formation, rational thinking, enhancements, and practical skill building. Now, the psychology, the neuroscience stuff is in the background. It's the foundational elements that help us ensure that the mastermind is going to provide successful outcomes for people. So think of it as enhancing emotional intelligence, which is the foundation of all human skills, or what some people call soft skills. Habit transformation, reducing counterproductive habits, which enhances productive habits. And we now have an assessment that is absolutely outstanding for that. It's called the Habit Story Assessment from 2Story. If you want to look that up online, feel free to do that. It is probably the best single assessment I have ever used because it measures 3 different things: productive and counterproductive habits on the same scale. It measures response patterns, how we respond to different things. And it measures emotional state, which is fantastic. Again, you can't change or fix what you can't see. And we all have blind spots. This is why the assessments are so important. Then we talk about higher thinking skills, how decision-making, problem solving, adaptive thinking, strategic thinking, numerical reasoning, logical reasoning. There are so many different thinking skills that can be enhanced. And every little bit you enhance those almost in many ways magnifies your success. Um, and the outcomes that we want a new mindset, a transformed mindset, or an enhanced mindset. You may be in a good place in your mindset. There's always room for growth. We want momentum going forward. We want this to be a launching pad for people and measurable growth. So the assessments could be done again in a year or so, or 6 months to see your growth. Now, we've talked about mindset here and why mindset is important. And here's the different areas that I have shared with you that I think are so critical: habit transformation, emotional intelligence, rational intelligence or rational thinking skills, and specific skill development. So, if you're a leader, if you're a salesperson, if you're a ministry leader, there will be many things that will be similar in skill development for the three different groups, but there will be things that are customized more to those groups, to people who are in those different areas of focus. And you as an individual are unique. You're one of one. But it starts with mindset. Mindset is the key, the foundation that we build on, and the filter that everything we experience passes through. That's what our mindset is. The better our mindset, the more productive, the more effective, the more we can find the right balance, which balance is not necessarily 50-50 on things, okay? So the more our mindset is in an optimal place, the more success and satisfaction we're going to have in life. So let's get into, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but I want to get into the specific areas of our EQFIT Masterminds. The first one is leadership. Now, who is this for? It's for emerging leaders. It's for seasoned leaders. It's for executives who want to maximize their impact. You know, somebody said to me, Steve, well, wait a minute. Shouldn't those cohorts that you create be just executives or just seasoned leaders, kind of middle management, or just emerging leaders? And my answer to that is no, I don't think so. Because executives and senior leaders need to know what leaders at different levels are experiencing, because it's going to help them in their transformation to better lead those lower levels of leadership in an organization. Emerging leaders need to understand what executives look at, what they're focused on, what they think about, how they measure things. Seasoned leaders need to know what both of the different leadership types are. So I believe in a mixed group for that specific reason. Otherwise, it's very easy to fall into that thing we call group think. If it's just one of those three, then we miss some of the insights and some of the opportunities there. And here in our masterminds, it's not just about the mindset. It's also a blending of the human skills and the most recent technologies to unlock a person's full leadership potential. We're not going to do away with technology in our world today. What we need to do is find the right balance of technological skills with human skills. And that is absolutely unique to what we're doing, because we go very deep on the human skills and the mindset side, but we tie that together with how technology impacts that and how we can use technology to become even better at what we do. This book is in process right now. I have not published this book yet. It's called The Emotionally Intelligent Leader: How to Lead with Power, Balance, and Purpose. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I will have it out sometime this fall. I have a few things going on, so it's not going quite as fast as I would like it to, but just to give you an idea of what's coming. The second thing, and one that is I mean, leadership definitely is something very close to my heart, but so are salespeople. And I've been one. I started in sales out of college. And I was in sales for quite a while before I changed to having my own business. And now I'm the third version of my business. And I'm always selling, right? Well, who is this for? Sales professionals, entrepreneurs. Maybe you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, a small organization. Anyone who wants to up their sales game to get maximum outcomes, there's nothing out there like that. This is not technique and tactic training. Now, the cool thing is it works with any sales techniques or trainings. I don't care if it's Challenger or Spin, Miller Hyman, I mean, you name it. This is a multiplier of success with any sales training or tactics or techniques that a person has learned, which is the beauty of the EQFIT Sales Mastermind. I have assessed and worked with hundreds of salespeople over the years. I know what's needed to be successful in sales. It starts with mindset, and then we bring the technology side in to make sure we don't leave that out of the picture and figure out what's necessary. Sales happen in the shared mind space that the salesperson creates and invites the buyer into. And so there is a whole lot of neuroscience going on in successful sales. And I have a unique teaching and coaching that I do in this EQFIT Sales Mastermind that is called Hot Cognition in Sales. And I'm not going to go into that today. I'll do that in a different LinkedIn Live somewhere in the future. But that is that. And I do have my book published for sales, Unlocking Sales Success with EQ, the Science and Practice of Emotionally Intelligent Selling. So it's a great place to start. It's on Amazon right now. The third area, and one that is very near and dear to me, is Ministry Mastermind, the EQFIT Ministry Mastermind. Who is it for? Anyone in a leadership role in a church or a ministry, from pastors to executive directors of nonprofits, teachers, disciple makers, whatever your leadership role is. And maybe it's just someone of faith who wants to enhance the spiritual, emotional connection that is so very important. And we have a new assessment called the Spiritual Emotional Intelligence Assessment. The short version is the SEQ. That is incredibly beneficial to foster a more connected emotional and spiritual growth journey. So this book is out on Amazon as well. Fruitful and Free, Living the Abundant Life Through Spirit-Led Emotional Intelligence. This is based on the Christian faith. It's based on the Bible. So I just want to be honest and open with people about that. It has scripture embedded throughout the book. And it really looks at just dozens and dozens of character studies of how characters in the Bible related to their emotions and how that emotion, their emotional life connected with their spiritual life. And like I said, I'm very happy to get this out for people to see and read. And I would ask, if you do buy one of the books, I would love a review because I need that feedback. That's very important to me. This is another way that, when you talk about a facilitator who knows what they're talking about, I'm not saying they all have to be authors and publish books, but it needs to be somebody who has the expertise, experience, ability to do that. All right, let me start to tie this together. Before you say yes, some things to consider about a mastermind. And we've gone through the 10 different things for a successful mastermind. Does it align with your goals and your expectations? That's really important. Is the facilitator experienced and intentional? The experience part, you know what that looks like. Do they really have the goods? Do they bring real value in their experience, their background, their certifications, their ability to deliver it? And intentional starts to talk about that ability to deliver. Is it well structured, well designed? Does it make sense? Is there a logical progression in that process? Are the participants the right fit? Well, I've made very clear the people that will join these cohorts in these different specific areas will be people that fit that directly, because that's what's going to make the best peer relationships and collaborative learning. Our science and structure embedded in the experience. Well, the science comes from my background in psychology, neuroscience, emotional intelligence, and all of that, plus the scientific validated assessments. And then the structure is, I have a very defined structure in how I approach it. Again, I would love for any of you watching to have a conversation with me about our EQFIT Masterminds. But if you don't and are looking at a mastermind of some kind, or even a training process or a coaching relationship, those 10 things apply there as well. So I just want you to be equipped. That's my 2-word purpose: equip people. I want you to be equipped to make the best decisions possible. And then again, let me close out here. Here are easy ways to get to me through my business email, steve@gscfit.com, and or our general email, info@EQFIT. EQFIT is our DBA. GSC stands for Goodner Strategic Consulting, which is how we originally formed this organization. So I want people to know what those things are. I'm a highly transparent person, obviously with a lot of words, and I'm running the ticker down below so you can see those resources again. I want to thank you for joining today, or if you're listening to this later, thank you for that. Again, if you want to leave something in the chat, I'm here for a couple of minutes more to answer any questions. Let me tie this up with just something to think about. A growth mindset is the most important doorway that you need to create, open, and enter into for your future growth, success, and happiness. If we are not growing, and growing in many different ways, in skill development, in our habits, making our habits better, transforming those, if we are not growing in our emotional intelligence and the quality of our relationships, if we are not growing in our ability to think at higher levels and more effectively with better outcomes, make better decisions, solve problems better, then we are literally limiting what we can do in our lives and who shapes our future. I want you to be able to shape your own future. And that only comes if you engage in investing in yourself. And that's what today was all about, to give you a sense of one pathway called a mastermind, and then also how we develop our mastermind. So it gives you a feel for what to look for when you want to move forward and see the success that you're interested in. Again, really appreciate you being here today and listening to this. You have my contact information. You have all of these free resources available to you. Thank you. I hope you check those out. And all of those have a way to communicate with me. Have a great rest of the week and rest of the year, and see you on the next one.